right, this is Charles with VIP Distributing here in St. Louis, Missouri. We're doing a super bright install for some LEDs on a farm truck, so it's going to be fun today. We've got a 20-inch curve light and two 3-inch driving lights. They're not the spotlights, they're more wide dispersion, and we're going to be fabbing up some brackets and installing them on this Dodge Ram. So this 20-inch curve light, basically this customer wants a wider dispersion of light. He wants to be able to see deer on the side of the road better, not so much in the distance, but off to the sides. That's why we're doing the curved light. The curved light requires a curved bracket, which I'm fabbing up here. Next time you see it, it'll probably be primed, keep it from corroding. All right, this is the farm truck in question. What we're going to do is put the curved light in here. The curvature from Super Bright is the exact curvature of this bumper, so it's going to look really good right there. And then those 3-inch driving lights are going to go on the outside. We're building the bracket to go in between these tow hooks so that we can mount them to the tow hook bolts. We're using two switches, one for the driving light, one for the spotlight. They're just simple rocker, two position on and off. We're going to run negative from these switches or ground out under the hood, and then we'll run those two relays driven off the parking lights for the positive side and the battery fused. That way the lights have to be on, the switch has to be on, and then the spotlights will come on. That way you don't accidentally leave them on. All right, we've got the tow hooks removed. It's 4 nuts and 4 bolts on each side. We're going to actually use these 2 big bolts right here to hold this bracket in place. If it'll tow this heavy truck out, it should hold some lights on there pretty well. That curved light, all the curved lights for that matter, have a curvature to them. The brackets themselves are curved, so we had to bend that bracket to meet the curve of this bumper. And then the tow hooks are flat, so we're going to have a bend in the bracket when it gets done right up against this edge, but it'll look really good when we're done. We're also going to tie into the parking lights. They're right down here. The owner has a previous HID install on here, so there's quite a bit of stuff in the way. Once we get to it, we'll show you that. Todd ran these out. These are our negative outs from the 2 switches, red being first switch, black being the second switch. We're going to run those to 2 relays right here. We're going to use fused constant power, parking light signal, negative from the switches, and then an output to the driving lights and output to the 20-inch bar, and that'll be it for the electrical. And I'll show you that as soon as we get to this parking light. So this is our parking light connection here. It's at the, they call it the TPM. It's basically the power center next to the battery. This truck has individual lefts and rights. We only need one, so we're catching the right one here. It's basically, we're using a multimeter. When we turn the lights on, it shows 12 volts. That's our signal that we're going to feed into the coil side of the relay, and then the negative side will be from the switches. With the 2 relays, we're going to run 86 to that parking light wire. We're going to run 85, which is the negative side of the coil, 1 to each of those switches that's in the dash, those 2 wires coming out under the hood. And then we'll have our greens going to constant power, that's 30, fused at the battery, and then the 20-inch bar and the driving lights. And that should take care of it. So you're going to need the parking lights on, and then you have your 3-inch driving lights, and then you have your spotlight in the center. Or you can leave them both on, and then they both turn off for the parking lights. The ones going to the battery, they have the fuse holders on them because they're going to feed power into the relay out to the lights. This one has the fuse holder on it. It's going to the parking light wire just to make sure that should something happen in a relay, or it's a pretty long shot, but just in case something happens, that parking light will still work on the truck. We're going to go ahead and put some heat shrink on the ones going to the switch wires. That way I don't forget to do it when I'm under the hood. After it's crimped, I'm still going to solder it anyway. Right now I'm connecting to the parking light wire. Looking good. These are the connections coming out from the switches. I've already got the heat shrink on there. Individual wires, we got 1 for each relay, therefore we can control each light individually. If you go by the trusty box here, it says 3-watt LEDs. They are the CREE model. Rated current draw is 1.34 amps for the spotlight. Compared to a normal bulb, that's about 1/10 of what a normal current draw would. Makes it easier for us because we can use 10, 12, 14 gauge wire instead of having to run 8 gauge or even bigger to it. So it'll make it a little easier for our installation. I'm running an excessive length because I want to run it down into the grill, and then I'm going to leave these connectors until later. That way I can tie it up, make it look nice and pretty, and cut it to length once it's installed. I'm using a 1/4-inch split loom on the switch wires and on the main power wires. Make it look better under the hood, also protect it. On this truck though, we're gonna make sure we're careful to keep it away from the intercooler. It's got a big metal bracket, and I'm going to the frame with the tow hooks on the bracket that I'm mounting it to, but because I painted all the surfaces, I don't really want to use those for my ground. I want to get a nice clean connection, and when I get over there, I'll show you that. I'm just combining these cables so that when I put the loom on there, you'll have 3 little pigtails. It'll be nice and pretty. You won't have a whole bunch of wires hanging out underneath the grill. All right, we just got our brackets back from paint. They're looking pretty good. We're gonna fab up the parts so we can test fit them, so we can mark the holes that we're gonna drill for the tow hooks and where it's gonna mount. You'll notice the curvature. See that there's a slight bend so that the bracket for the bent bar will look good. It also bends these outside ones out a little bit, which is actually per the customer's request. They wanted more visibility to the edges of the road than straight ahead. I'm looking at where I want to mark these holes for where the tow hook came through, how much metal I need to remove in order to clamp this underneath the tow hook. Trimmed out where I had it marked with the grease pencil there to cut around the tow hooks. And now we're going to bolt them to the brackets using the bolts for the lights to make it one continuous piece with the lights attached to it. Loctite 242, it's the blue one, just to make sure that, with it being a diesel, that it doesn't work its way loose from all the vibration. This bracket and this heat sink on the back here is what holds these nuts from spinning. Nylon obviously goes on the outside, or I guess the inside of the light or the outside of the bolt, depending on which way you're going. But you basically have to drop it in and get it lined up like so. Put your bracket on, line the hole up, tightening them up just like so. Don't go too tight. It's it's aluminum, it's not steel. The bolt sticking through there, line it back up with our bracket. Then you're going to use lock washer, 13mm nut. All right, so we're going to plug all these connectors in that we'd already pre-wired. We're going to set all this in here for now and set it in. Double check all of our connections and grounds before we bolt everything up. Let's get a ground on there so we can light it up. This is the ground we're going to use. It's the factory 4-gauge for the chassis. Go ahead and connect the power to it so we can test it, make sure everything's lighting up good before we bolt it all down. It's a good habit to test everything prior to finishing the entire install. When it's completed, this steel bracket here that's bolted to the lights is going to get pinched to the factory tow hooks through these 2 bolts right here, so you can kind of see how it's going to line up. What we got left now is to zip tie up those loose wires on the bottom, keep them away from all the moving parts, and this will be completed. If you're interested in any of the products that you've seen in this video, click the link below. This is Charles of VIP in St. Louis and Super Bright LEDs.